Welcome back to the table. Today, David and I are taking a look at Unconscious Mind, which is the newest game by Fantasia Games.
Yeah, this game is a little bit heavier than I think we anticipated when we played it.
Definitely heavier than we might have thought.
We're going to get to giving you a bit of an overview, but I can tell you, oftentimes we're like saying, we're not going to teach you the whole game. We may not barely give you a full-blown overview of this because there's a lot to go into.
Get some concepts.
Yeah, we're going to give you some general ideas of the flow of the game and what you're doing, and the theme and how those are connected. But to go into all those details would be quite a bit. Safe to say, though, if you're a Lacerda fan, I think this is going to be a game. Yeah, she's the bigger Lacerda fan than I am, for sure. I think this game is going to be for you. It's not exactly like a Lacerda, but it's definitely a weighty game. And there are some things that I feel were probably some inspiration from Lim's.
I think if you've played Lacerda games and you play this, you'll see some of the crossover, and it's definitely one to check out.
Yeah. So what Unconscious Mind is all about is you are effectively working, you're contemporaries of Freud. And you're going to be going to Freud's apartment.
Yes.
And hanging out with Freud
discussing
and discussing ideas. You're going to be traveling around the city of Vienna, sort of like just kind of watching people, understanding people, reading the news.
Newspaper articles.
Yeah, just basically soaking up everything you can to sort of get that back out into published works or treatises. And of course, the entire time, you're also wanting to cure patients.
Yes, so you're a psychoanalyst, right? And you've got clients that you're treating by looking at their dreams, right? So you are definitely getting into the theme here, right? You have different types of dreams for different clients, and each of these clients has a layer of grief over them, right? So they come to you with something that's kind of on their mind, right? And it's up to you to analyze these dreams to help them reach catharsis, right? And get treated eventually.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And we're going to talk about the components all through this because the way they've used the components and the theme to marry that with all of the mechanisms is really
quite something.
Quite something. You'd mentioned the grief cards. They are these transparent cards with effectively a different Rorschach type design on them. And it's going to be added on top of one of the patients that also has some trauma. So it's added 3 + 2 trauma. So that's how much you have to treat in order to cure it. But you can also reach a certain point on that track and get rid of the grief card, at which point you're going to score some points, you're going to get some things. And some of the things that you're going to be getting in the game is insight. There are 3 different types of insight, and on the insight board, you're effectively collecting the resources that you spend in the game. There is, and I hopefully get this right, freedom,
there you go,
passion, and growth.
You did perfect. Nice
Excellent.
job.
I'm learning.
Perfect psychoanalyst.
Excellent. But you get 3 different levels of those, and the patients and their dreams are going to allow you to take this layer of a dream off. And the top layer is always going to be a manifest dream. And then the bottom one is going to be a
latent dream.
Latent dream. And both of these dreams are going to take off some amount of the trauma. They're going to potentially give you some things, but they might not cure all of the trauma. You might have to do some other things, just spending some raw insight to help cure the patient completely.
Need a little more TLC than that sometimes.
And there are 2 different kinds of patients.
You got your common clients, and then you got your research clients. So the research clients can give you endgame abilities and points, and the common clients are going to give you abilities you're using throughout the game. So once you've treated them, and they're like happy in society, spreading the good word about your psychoanalysis, they're allowing you to take these new abilities that can be pretty game-changing, honestly.
They're big ongoing abilities. I love ongoing abilities, but as you can see, we're talking about a lot of things you're probably familiar with if you've played any Euro, but they've really woven it in with this theme really well.
So what is the game at its heart, though, David?
The game at its heart is a worker placement game. So you start with worker placement on the meeting board, and then you're going to be moving around Vienna in this board. But on your turn, you have a few different options. The first option is to take one of your idea tokens, these are effectively the workers, and place it on the meeting board. Now this is kind of cool because there's about 9 different actions here that you can take, but depending on where you place, you can sort of point that little part of the idea bubble towards the action that you want to take. And then you take that action. Now, you can spend 1 or 2 or potentially 3 in some of these positions down lower on the board because you can take that action potentially multiple times. These 1, these 2, and these 3. These actions are going to do a variety of different things. Some of them at the top here are going to let you get technique tiles. Those technique tiles are going to come to your player board in one of 9 locations, and those are going to create rows and columns that are effectively engines that you can fire off throughout the game at different times. Some of it is going to let you do some things with newspapers, getting newspapers, effectively reading those articles and sharing that information by playing those newspapers, and then taking played newspapers, this is a very cool part, and publishing treatises. So after you have enough knowledge from those newspapers, you can sort of collect that information and put them out in a treatise that requires certain colors. This is one avenue to score points. This has nothing to do with even curing patients at this point. And then the rest of this is going to be either interacting with the Vienna map or effectively just collecting
more insights
and manipulating your insight. You need to gain some, and then there's things that allow you to increase it to sort of a major level or a median level.
And that's just the first half of your turn.
That is. And that's only one option for the first half of your turn.
Yep.
The second half, if you take that option, is to do one of 2 things. The first thing you can do, and what you're probably going to be doing early on in the game, is writing about what you've done, your experience, everything you've collected. And this is one of the coolest components I've seen in a board game in a while.
I love them.
You have these ink pots that start at the top here, and they're going to go around this sort of like little mini rondelle on your board. And again, depending on where you placed, so I could take, say, this action right here, there, and move my ink pot once. But if I took the same action from here, I'm going to take the same action at the same power, but I'm going to move it twice. So why do you want to move it differently? Because you're going to fire off those different rows of technique tiles that you've collected, or potentially come around here and do some stuff up with the reputation track, or potentially come all the way back to the top and have a couple options where you're unlocking more ideas, which are effectively workers, or once you've unlocked them, firing off the column of your choice that you've unlocked and all the tiles there. So there's like a lot of little mini engines that you can create here.
And then, so if you're not writing about it, you can also then instead treat some patients.
Yes.
Right? So you're looking at your clients and you're saying, okay, do I have the insights for this stream? Yes, I have this. Yes, I have that. Yes, I have this. At the beginning of the game, you only have 1 client at a time until you fully treat your first client. And then from there, you'll have 2 at any time. So when you're treating, you can choose to treat both of them at the same time, but you only treat 1 dream at a time. So you're kind of like trying to get all the right things in the right spots so you can do them both at the same time, right? Be as efficient as possible. But that can be really difficult because you also have a limited number of these little tokens that you're moving around for insight resources.
Yeah, now, one of the things that's really cool about this game is there's a lot of interconnectivity through all the different things, and we haven't even talked about all those different things. But one of those things is as you fill your player board with technique tiles, you are going to unlock more player-colored insight that you can add to your board and use there temporarily, but then you're ultimately going to use that when you publish those treatises, when you take some bonus scoring, all sorts of different things. So that's one option on your turn. The other option is recalling your workers. So this is one of those worker placement games where people can get out of sync with one another.
Yeah, easily.
I can publish, or I can use all my ideas, and then at a certain point I'm like, okay, I'm just going to recall. In the first part of the game, when you recall, you take all of your ideas back. And from each position you take, you're going to get coffee back. Coffee, you say? Well, we haven't even talked about coffee. That is another resource that effectively largely has to do with increasing your techniques. You're going to drink some coffee to stay up, to stay alert, to talk with Freud and all of his friends to really get those techniques down.
You run off of coffee in this game.
You run off of coffee, which is pretty funny to me, but you do. But you're going to get coffee for all of those, and then after you recall.
Again, you can treat your clients. So again, you're going to look at what insights do you have, and can I treat the clients I have? Or instead this time of writing it down, you can go out to the city of Vienna and take some bonuses or get some district scoring depending on where you're located right now.
Yeah, and the cool thing, just another way to communicate how many things are interconnected here. When you do this district scoring or district bonuses, it's going to rely on how many tags you have for that district. That's going to come back to potentially a lot of the newspapers you've read and shared, or treatises that you've published.
Or clients that you've helped treat.
Yeah,
so many ways.
Everything is really connected. This is a game where I think when we first started playing, we thought, okay, I'm going to do this, and maybe this is what I'll do in this game. And effectively, the scoring comes down to you're going to get points from the treatises, you're going to get points from
your clients,
the clients, and you're going to get points from the Vienna board here. But I'd say after our plays, the clients are sort of one of the core aspects of this.
Engines, yeah.
You want to cure your clients. I mean, what kind of psychotherapist analyst would you be? But you're also going to get some points up here too, and that's going to kind of probably make the difference. Also, you really can't ignore certain things because at a certain point, they're all so interconnected that if you
you're going to get stopped somehow.
Yeah,
right?
you're either going to get stopped or you're going to get to the point where you're like, well, I may as well do this too.
Yes.
Like you might have the newspapers all ready to do a treatise. There's a lot of really interesting little things that we could tell you about this game too. And I think that's what I want to share is in a large part, this is a heavy Euro that is, in the strictest of terms, contract fulfillment. But to tear away what they've done with the theme here and how they've applied it, I think would do the game a disservice because I think it really elevates the game. And we do want to point out some of those things that it's doing that I think really kind of bring it all together. And I'll start. One of those things is the artwork. And we don't talk a lot about artwork in a preview, but I think it bears mentioning here. They have two artists here. Not only are they two fantastic artists, but they've decided to use them in a very interesting way. Vincent Dutray, he's done all of the sort of what I'd say is real world artwork. So all of the clients, a lot of the artwork you've probably seen associated with the game already, the box cover itself, is Vincent Dutray. The dreams, which are all, it's kind of like Dixit cards. They're very surreal and very strange. Those are done by Andrew Bosley. And the contrast between those two, when you put them on the table here and you have your clients and then above them the dreams, is really, really cool.
Yeah, you really do look at yourself and you're like, yeah, I wonder what this dream would mean, right? Or what is this thing? Oh, they have animals with long legs. What could that possibly mean? Even when it's not your turn, right? There's so much to absorb going on in all the components that I think it really does elevate the gameplay.
Yeah, and then also I would say, along with those clients, we've mentioned this already, these transparent grief cards that you put on top. The way these come out is when you've taken a client, they refill from one of two different client stacks, and then they'll immediately get out of this sort of like hidden box another grief card, so you don't know exactly what's going to come out on top of those. But when you take them, you're able to sort of take a client and look at like what kind of points they have, what they're going to give you, what their grief card is and how it relates to the trauma, and what their card and how it contributes to the trauma, and then try to match those up well with the dreams.
Yes.
And some of them even have grief cards that have types of dreams on them. So
you could
there's
have like reoccurring dreams.
Or lucid dreams.
Yes.
And then the dreams themselves might have those same symbols. And if you can pair those up correctly and treat them appropriately, you're able to treat them a little bit better. So there's going to be times in the game where you're like, I could treat or I could do this, but Emily's about to treat, and there's a really good combo of cards up there. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and treat now so that I can grab that before she does, which is a really, and not that I did that when we played together.
No, we weren't quite at that level.
I was not at that level for sure. But there's a lot of thinking going on at the table.
Well, and I would also say too, so we got these cool idea meeples, right? We're selling our ideas, we're talking to each other, but even things like, so when we create this treatise, right, you can then later cite someone else's work, right? And so what ends up happening is you put these different newspaper articles, they fit in right behind it.
Which is one of the coolest things too. You put the articles in with this token so that
they just line up perfectly.
It lines up, looks like a nice little packet of booklets. But that rightmost one,
then you can then cite and say like, oh, your rightmost one is purple. I want that purple, and I'm going to use it in my treatise so that I can do my own and publish my own work, right? And it's super cool, just little things like that where like you have to take from the rightmost so it still looks nice, and you can cite someone else's so they get 2 points. It feels like you're actually doing what you're doing, right? Like you're building a treatise, and so I'd be using other people's work, it actually goes along really well with the theme.
Yeah, it's amazing how they've incorporated the theme in this and really made it feel like, you do feel kind of in this weird way like, oh, I've got to cure these patients. And, looking at the dreams, looking at their grief card, and then as a gamer, looking at what you're going to get from it.
Yes.
Not only from the grief cards themselves, those score as soon as you hit catharsis, which is not exactly a full cure of the patient, which is nice. So there's a lot of strategic things that come into play. For example, like towards the end of the game, you might look and go, well, I'm not going to be able to fully cure a patient between now and the end of the game if you feel it's close. But I might take this patient because the grief card is going to be something I might be able to reach catharsis with and score those points. So there's a lot of interesting things, and the fact that this game gives you the opportunity and the flexibility.
There's so much, we didn't even talk about how coffee can be used in a lot of different flexible ways to change your insights, to upgrade, to elevate your insights, or to get you bright ideas, which are a whole nother resource that allow you to take basically extra actions on turns. Again, so much flexibility here. There's anytime you're thinking, okay, this is what I need A, B, C, there's probably 5 different ways you could do it in a single turn, or 20 different ways you could do it by the start of your next turn, right?
Yeah, and finding those efficiencies, I think, is why we would relate it to a Lacerda game. It's an efficiency puzzle, and guarantee this is going to be one of those games where you'll take your turn, you're like, okay, I did this, I knew I needed this for the dream, I used that insight, and then you're going to realize, oh, there are so many other options I could have used, and I could have done that a little bit better, and maybe even got a couple more bonuses out of it. So you're going to want to look everywhere in this game to find resources that you can use and actions that you can use. And those could be on the Vienna board, they could be on the core actions, they could be on your technique tiles, and they could even be on the patients that you're curing or healing with catharsis, because those cards themselves might give you that little extra something that you need to continue to get more out of that turn. And that is a very satisfying feeling when any board game does this, and this really gives a lot of opportunities for that, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you like Lacerda games, definitely want to take a look at this game. If you like heavy games, you want to look at this. If you like highly thematic games and unique themes, I think.
Yeah, I was really excited when I heard about this theme, honestly, and I was a little bit hesitant because I feel like anything having to do with the mind sometimes just gets really slapped on themes and really abstract. And this one I felt like they really took the time to make it sing. So yeah, definitely check out. I think it's on Kickstarter.
Yeah, it'll be on Kickstarter. And if we have a little bit more time with this, we may even get some gameplay up on another piece of content, just so you can get a better feel for the flow of the game. I know we were a little all over the place. We might need to go see someone and sit down on a couch after this. But there is a lot to this game. So if you don't see content on our channel, definitely seek it out to see this game played, because it has a lot going on. And to really appreciate it, you can take a look at it. Or you can ask us some questions down below in the comments. We will answer literally everything you ask about the game.
Not about your dreams, but you could ask about your dreams.
I mean, you can ask about your dreams, and I'll give it my best shot anyway. But until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.